What did I tell ya? It's a Canuck-centric day today. We already talked about Luke Schenn and the apparent interest in him from the Toronto Maple Leafs. This video is going over the Abby Canucks and what's been going on over there, and then of course we have Vancouver, Arizona later in the night. We're going to make a post-game video about that if there is anything to talk about. Kind of funny as well, because that video, should we make it, is going to be all about Vancouver and Arizona. This video right here is all about the two farm teams. Last night, the Abbotsford Canucks went out there and they played themselves the Tucson Roadrunners. Man, I've got some great memories of Tucson. We'd beat to death a Blink-182 song over there. But either way, we had ourselves last night Abby versus Tucson in Abbotsford, and one of the biggest parts about this game that was noteworthy for a lot of Canucks fans was the return of Jack Rathbone. Now, there was a little bit of conversation going around as to what the plan would be for the Canucks blue line because, as we know, Quinn Hughes being out with protocol is very unfortunate. He's going to miss about 3 games-ish before coming back, hopefully against San Jose. And because the Vancouver Canucks are now down their number one dynamic, offensively productive defenseman who quarterbacks a power play and who does everything right in the offensive zone pretty much, it sparks up a conversation as to who's going to come in here and who's going to replace that. Now, as we said in the video yesterday talking about Quinn Hughes getting removed from the lineup, you can't replace that. It's very difficult to replace that. Is OEL good enough to do that? I'm not too sure. He believes that he can. He said in the press conference yesterday, yeah, it's going to be tough, but I'm going to try to step up to the task. But there is indeed another Canucks defenseman whose offensive prowess has been quite noteworthy throughout his past few years of development, and it is indeed that Jack Rathbone. Now, Rathbone, if you don't know who this guy is, because he was drafted as a Canucks guy in 2017 in the 4th round, so he's not really the most, highly profiled guy out there. He was fantastic with Harvard in the NCAA as an offensive defenseman. He played with the Canucks last year. He played with the Canucks this year as well. He has had himself a pretty interesting development path as a 4th-round guy. I don't usually see 4th-round guys being as good as Rathbone was in the NCAA and in the AHL. Sure, he had 0 points in the 9 games played he had with Vancouver, but who cares? We all know he's got so much more to prove at the NHL level, and plus he kind of joined the team when their defense was riddled with injuries left and right, so it was kind of a desperation thing. The team wasn't really doing all too well. It wasn't his fault that he went out there with 0 points. Either way, though, in the AHL, he actually had himself his returning game last night. Now, because he was entering the Abbotsford Canucks lineup, and Quinn Hughes at the same time was exiting the Vancouver Canucks lineup, there were a few people going out there saying, okay, now that Hughes is out and Rathbone is back, it's easy, right? Just take Rathbone, cut and paste him over onto the main Canucks squad, and we'll see him go out there and play. Well, it wasn't really that easy in the minds of the people running the Canucks, because yesterday we had ourselves Noah Juulsen, Ashton Sautner, and Kyle Burrows, who were a part of the Canucks' first practice after the All-Star break. Rick Dhaliwal said this: "As I said on Donnie and Dolly this morning, it will not be Rathbone. They want him to play. He missed a lot of games with a shoulder injury. He will play for Abby tonight instead." And you also had comments from Boucher himself. The reason why we didn't call up Rathbone this time is because our strength is defense. In the end, we'll probably use him, but I've heard a lot of great things about him. He also added that the club wanted a more defensive defenseman at this time, but that Rathbone will eventually get his shot. And yeah, that's a fair perspective, going out there and saying, Rathbone, you missed so much time, you've only played however many games it is on the year. We can't afford to go out there and play you in the NHL right away, either in a depth role because you're not really going to develop, nor are we going to go out there and play you in the NHL in the Quinn Hughes spot. You're not there yet. So go back to the AHL, spend some more time with Abby, and be the number 1 guy over there because he hadn't really played all too much. Sure, you're probably good enough to play in the NHL, but with players like these, you have to be very delicate with their development, because one long stint in a different league than they're capable of could be the detriment that ultimately derails an otherwise pretty good development profile. So, Rathbone suiting up for Abbotsford yesterday against the Tucson Roadrunners had himself a goal and 4 assists. Rathbone had a 5-point night in the Canucks 8-5 win over the Roadrunners. And he started things off very quickly. It's Sheldon Dries, 3 minutes into the first period, who gets himself a pass from Rathbone. He breaks into the zone, comes in, he shoots it, and he scores it. 4 minutes later was Jack Rathbone on the power play, who absolutely one-times a shot from the right face-off circle-ish area. and it gets right by the goaltender, making it 2-1 over there. Rathbone then put up 3 more assists as the game went on, as the Canucks won 8-5, and, I mean, what else is there to say about that? Like, he comes back here from a shoulder injury in the best way possible, puts up 5 points on the night, and his total point production metric now is 14 points in 15 games played in the Abbotsford Canucks system, and 6 points in his last 5 games, 10 points in his last 10. Now, of course, this sample size has been taken from before he was sidelined with a shoulder injury as well, so it's not really the most linear thing to keep track of, but it still is very good to see, especially for a guy doing what he is doing at 22 years old. This is what a pro scout said in Abbey tonight on Rathbone's 5-point game. Lots of jump with the puck tonight, he rushed it more, created lots of offense with Sheldon Rempal, who was also very good tonight. Rathbone defensively needs to get stronger around his net, but you can see the impact he could have. Dhaliwal also said that Patrick Allvin was at the game too, so there you go, good connections right there. He's making just under $1 million, and this contract does expire at the end of this season, so the Canucks will need to re-sign Rathbone, and that's going to be a very interesting conversation, seeing where the dollar amount goes, because that overall number is kind of going to be indicative to me as to where the Canucks are going to choose to play Rathbone next season, because, I mean, he can play in the NHL, most likely he'll be good enough to do so, it's just how much do you want to go out there and play him? Should he stay in Abbotsford and continue on the path that he has had, where he's producing points like crazy, he's a point per game in his last little sample size over here, then I say give the man his money, actually try to use him at the NHL level and see if those offensive qualities can translate. They certainly did last year when he suited up for the team in the shortened season where everybody was riddled with the virus. 3 points, 8 games played, not bad. But of course this season tainted his sample size at the NHL level in a more negative way because he got 0 points, but again, circumstantially, it doesn't really matter. Now, last night there also was another defenseman on the Abbey Canucks blue line who had himself a very notable performance. It is the man that Botchford went out there and yelled out his last name, mostly for fun, but also because it was a pretty interesting prospect at the time, Guillaume Brisebois. He went out there with a notable performance too. Now, he only had himself 1 goal, 0 assists. It's not the 5-point night that Rathbone had, but Guillaume Brisebois' goal was nasty. Brisebois displayed a level of skill on this goal that I haven't seen out of this guy ever. Like, he's been a Canucks prospect since, 2015? And we had never seen anything like this come out of Guillaume Brisebois and the hands that be. He comes in with the Forsberg move. He comes over down the left side, dekes the puck over to his far forehand, the goalie bites, and he goes over to the backhand and shoves it in while skating beside the net. He scores the Forsberg, and everybody goes wild. The clip is going viral on Twitter. Guillaume Brisebois scores a Forsberg, and it's kind of a reminder to me that he is like a guy, like he actually exists and he plays, because he hasn't really been playing all too much this season either. 1 game played for the Vancouver Canucks and 7 games played with the Abbey Canucks. He's only played 8 games on the year. Now, he did just recently get activated off the IR, which is kind of why he missed out on so much time, so that's unfortunate to see as well. But imagine making your return to the Abbotsford Canucks in a bigger and better way. The only other way I think you could actually go out there and make a bigger splash is if you got 5 points, but you know, not everybody can go out there and get 5 points on the night like Rathbone did. But still, the Abbey Canucks getting a big boost from defensemen returning to their lineup. Brisebois with the Forsberg, Rathbone with 5 points. It's a great reminder to everybody here in the Lower Mainland that there are indeed some other options on the blue line that could present themselves as skillful talents and actually NHL caliber guys. Now, I'll say this about Brisebois, he's never really been the most, comforting guy at the NHL level, even in the limited games that he did play with the Canucks last season. I remember he was not really the most reliable, but he wasn't terrible. So obviously, he's 24, so it's not like he's got a super long amount of development time to go here, but as long as he's going out there doing his thing and making sure that all the fine details are getting worked on, that's good enough for me. As for Jack Rathbone, though, he's 22, so he's got a lot more time to develop and become better, and because this is like his 2nd pro year ever, I think, there is indeed more growth that could be had with Rathbone and his overall profile. but a 5-point game certainly isn't a bad way to kick things off. We'll see if the Canucks end up using him sometime down the line, but either way, talk in the comments, what do you think about last night's Abbey versus Tucson game? Jack Rathbone, the 5-point performance, Brisebois with the Forsberg goal, pretty good defenseman performances if I do say so myself. I hope you enjoyed this Rosén, and bye.